Evacuation in Great Britain began on the 1st of September 1939 when Operation Pied Piper began. Operation Pied Piper would allow for the evacuation of children and pregnant women from industrial cities and areas in England. Also, the evacuation of teachers who would join the children and organise the evacuation of the children, help in that organisation, to rural areas. And of course, a popular choice was Wales. A popular choice of where these children would go would be Wales. In total, throughout World War II, 3.5 million people, mostly children, were evacuated from industrial towns and cities. In different stages, it must be said, over the course of the war, but as a total, you're talking about 3.5 million. And almost a third of the entire population of Great Britain was affected in some way by evacuation. This was a mass movement of people. We mentioned where they went. Wales, very, very popular destination for many of them. So from Manchester, Birmingham, London, a lot of them went to South and Mid Wales, and also North Wales too. When they got there, there were varying different experiences for the evacuees in rural Wales. You have to remember that this was not done by class. The children arrived in a class. They would be taken to the town hall. The local ARP warden would go there. They would be lined up. The local people would come and they would select. There would be a selection process where they would choose the child that they would like to take in. And remember, it was a legal requirement. It was a legal requirement for British residents with the space to do so, for them to take in children. So there was a selection process. If there were children left at the end of that process, remember, these are the people who have volunteered. These are the people who have come to the town hall to do the selection. If there were children left at the end, those children would then be taken by the ARP warden to properties where they knew there were single people living. A great example of this is the film Goodnight, Mr. Tom. He doesn't want to take in an evacuee, but he has to. It's a legal requirement. You could technically go to jail for saying, I'm not taking in an evacuee. So the ARP would take any children that were left after the selection on a door-to-door basis. They would find them somewhere to stay. What this led to was various different evacuee experiences. Some were good, some were bad, and some were real eye-openers as well, because remember, the good experiences were often city children who had a really poor lifestyle, poor diet, poor standard of schooling, came from really deprived communities in places like London. They were taken to rural areas. Some of them had never seen animals before. Famous accounts of children who've never seen a cow before, never seen a sheep before. They get fresh air. You have to remember that London is a polluted city. It's intensely unhealthy, really, to live there in the year 1940. They're going to the rural areas in Wales. It's a completely different life. Many of them have nits, and the people in Wales are actually quite shocked by the condition of some of these children. But again, you also have the problems that are associated with that, perhaps behaviour issues, some problems in integrating with the locals, shall we say, for those children. And as I say, there were both sides really to that experience of many city children. Some of them didn't go to Wales. Some of them actually ended up going to foreign countries. There were children who were evacuated to Australia, Canada, New Zealand. 5,000 children were evacuated to the USA. where, you know, children who maybe had relatives or people that they knew in those countries were evacuated. But remember, that actually stopped in September 1940 when a ship carrying children to Australia and New Zealand was torpedoed by a German U-boat, and I think 280 children perished in that attack in September of 1940. So that was stopped. The main evacuations took place within the United Kingdom, and it wasn't actually just children, as we mentioned, pregnant mothers. We mentioned teachers, because actually when those teachers were transported away, if you were left behind, because remember, some parents refused to take their children out of London because they'd missed them, because they didn't want them to go, they didn't think it'd be healthy for them. So many of the children stayed behind, and they didn't actually get much of an education back in London because they had a shortage of teachers. Many of the teachers went with the children to Wales. So there was actually a lack of formal education throughout World War II in some of these major cities. Also, it wasn't just those groups. You also had businesses and organisations who actually took part in the evacuation. So, for example, the Bank of England relocated. To Hampshire, and also it transferred large amounts of its gold reserve to Canada as well. The BBC relocated to different regions. Much of its equipment was siphoned out to local stations. You also had the National Gallery, which actually ended up in Festiniog in North Wales, and the National Gallery spent its war years in Festiniog, which is in North Wales. So there were lots of aspects to this evacuation, lots of aspects, but ultimately there were 3.5 million children who were evacuated in total.